Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at micronuclear.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning to you, my friends, on this Wednesday edition of the show. Happy hump day to you. The beautiful ball of fire is in the sky. I was looking out there over this morning, wanted to take a picture and share it with you. But then I realized it was radio, so I can't. But, you know, hey, it is what it is. It's a beautiful, beautiful day out there. The last couple of days have just been amazing. So far, a little spoiled in some of the hot weather and sunshine that we're seeing down here. But I guess I shouldn't let it go to my head and be expecting it all the time. But another beautiful day here in paradise, and we're ready to go. Today on the program, we've got our guest coming up in hour 2 today. We're going to be joined by former Representative Ben Carpenter, who's now the host of the Must Read Alaska podcast. He's going to be coming on board to talk with us about the potential for the special session and what does he think happens, and what does he think of the maneuvering on it, and what is the overall, now that the budget and the a lot of the vetoes have gone through, what does he think? So we're going to get his take as a former legislator and fiscal hawk on this, and we're going to talk with him about that in hour 2. Tomorrow on the program, Representative Sarah Vance is going to be joining us, and we'll see what she has to say about the special session and more. She's been apparently out on the road, and there hasn't been any real discussion with her on what's going on. So maybe we'll get some exclusive stuff tomorrow at 7 a.m. But in the meantime, this morning, we've got some headlines from around the country and around the state, I guess I should say. And we're going to go over those and talk about them, including the latest discussion on the Eielson nuclear project, micronuclear. And you got to make sure you say that word right, or people get really mad about it. It's funny, but it's true. Anyway, we're also potentially going to talk a little bit about the proposed seasonal sales tax in the KPB. I know that Fairbanks has toyed around with this idea several times, and it's faltered every time, but we'll talk about that. Also, I don't know if you caught this opinion piece from Donald Craig Mitchell in the ADN. He's an Anchorage attorney and apparently the author of a 2-volume history of Anilka, and most recently a book called Tribal Sovereignty in Alaska: How It Happened and What It Means. And I mean, honestly, I'd never heard of him. But wow, this is a piece. How quickly the worm has turned. And at this point on Lisa Murkowski. And it's it's super interesting, and we're probably going to get into this here later in this first hour, because it's going to take a full segment to digest this. He's got there's a lot of stuff in there that's going on. So we'll talk about that as well. And some bad news for Scooter Kendall and Company. Scooter Kendall and Company have got some problems as well. So I guess we could just literally start there. I mean, I'd take a vote in the chat room, but I think they're just gonna go along with me this morning on this one. So the lawsuit, you remember the lawsuit that was brought by the 3 stalking horse pawns of the that Scott Kendall gathered together. Remember, he got 3 different names, 3 different people: Elizabeth Medicine Crow, Amber Lee, and Kevin McGee. Those were the names that were used to legally challenge the ranked choice voting repeal signatures. You remember that? They were citizens. Does everybody remember that? Well, those folks got in a little bit of hot water because they have now settled out of court, because the Supreme Court ruled in favor of both the Division of Elections and the petitioners and said, no, these were all handled right. All these signatures that were valid, and any of the challenge signatures, that whole thing, they could change it. That was valid. The court basically said, I mean, it was kind of surprising, quite honestly, because historically, the Alaska Supreme Court is not known as a bastion of conservative thought or, really even, I guess, pro-citizen thought. So but it was challenged, and they said no. The Division of Elections did the right thing, and the petitioners themselves did the right thing, and everything was good, and it was all Gucci. But you'll remember that this lawsuit was all brought together by good old Scooter. Remember Scooter Kendall, Scott Kendall, who was also the architect of ballot measure 2, the original ranked choice voting, had put this whole thing together, basically as a form of lawfare, right? It was aimed at, in its timing and in its with his allies in the news media, because Kendall apparently has got some real, I mean, anytime he does something, you can see it gets, kind of positively spun and reported in the news media. And so they were, hey, this group, the ranked choice repeal group, is now being sued for improper collection of signatures. And, this was the kind of headlines that you were seeing. Well, there was a lawsuit that was a counter lawsuit that was brought, and they lost. Scooter Kendall and Company lost the challengers, those 3 people, and I guess Scooter, I don't know if Scooter's involved in the actual payout or not, but at least those 3 people I mentioned, Elizabeth Medicine Crow, Amber Lee, and Kevin McGee, they all had to pay $50,000 to the repeal group's lawyer, Kevin Clarkson. That was part of the deal. Also, as part of the resolution, both sides agreed to dismiss appeals with prejudice, and the sponsors of the petition, which is Phil Eielson and his crew, also agreed not to renew their request for attorney fees in appeal after the Alaska Supreme Court issued its final ruling. So each party is going to bear its own remaining legal fees, but $50,000. I mean, this is, Opponents of ranked choice voting say the lawsuit was intended not just to question petition signatures, which was on the face of it what they were saying, but to distract, exhaust, and financially damage the sponsors in the midst of a critical repeal effort. Remember, this wasn't the only thing that was going on. This wasn't the only attempt to beat up on Phil Eison and Art Mathias and Jamie Donnelly. This was not the only attempt on this. Remember, they had the whole funding thing where they filed APOC reports and APOC violations, and there was like a $45,000 fine at one point for an APOC violation. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on here, right? And this was just one of many things in that whole lawfare category, and this is what they were attempting. They were attempting to try and derail any kind of momentum that the ranked choice voting repeal crowd was trying to get in there. And so I have to cackle maniacally a little bit. I have to stroke the beard and just a little bit, because I feel like there's just a little bit of vindication here. Because even though ranked choice voting was, eventually the repeal was eventually defeated by a narrow margin, I think part of it had to do with the confusion on the part of the public. I talked to a lot of people who were like, is no yes or yes no? They couldn't. I talked to people who said, well, I thought I was voting to keep it or repeat. There was confusion. And then on top of it, you get all these news stories that are being put out there about how the signatures may not have been valid or they were being loosey goosey with the funding or the donations, or there's all kinds of things going on. In the end, Scott Kendall and company take it on the chin and have to pay $50,000 in legal fees to the repeal choice, to the ranked choice repeal sponsors. So it would, it should have been more than 50,000, but that's lawfare. You get into these kind of things, and if it's into the 5 and 6 digit category, you have to start to think about this is not regular lawsuits over just signature gathering or something else. This really is about lawfare, and that's kind of where we're at right now. But anyway, the good news is they got a little bit of a spanking. I don't think, according to what I'm seeing here, I don't think that Scott Kendall, although he's mentioned in the article and they say it's his backing in his group, I don't think he had to take it on the chin on this. I don't think he had to take any personal stance on this. But I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see where that goes. But so anyway, some good news on the Scooter Kendall, by the way, gets mentioned in this opinion piece we're going to get into here in just a little bit, which is this opinion piece on Murkowski from Donald Craig Mitchell, which, oof, man, this thing is caustic. I love it. I find it entertaining, I guess I should say. I should hold back on my enthusiasm on this. People will be thinking something's wrong with me. All right, we are coming up on the break, so I guess we'll continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more after this. Don't go anywhere.
What is that?
Common sense.
Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Hi, how are you? How are you doing this morning? Are you ready? Woohoo! Woo! Woohoo! No, I haven't heard back from baggage yet. Somebody just said, "Hey, no rep baggage. We're working on it. We're working on it." All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Brian says, "Good morning, my friends. Time for world domination." Or at least pouring coffee without hurting myself. Oh, I need some coffee this morning. I didn't get any coffee this morning. Let it be known on the nuclear thing that when they bring that to North Pole base to test, that it will be even enough power that the whole installation, which is proven to work in cold climates, already through just need to get the other cold nuclear side. Don't know exactly what you're trying to say there, Miguel. Let it be known that when they bring that to North Pole base to test, that it will be even enough to power that whole installation, which they has proven to work in cold climates already through just need to get with other cold nuke. Not quite sure. More coffee is needed, I think, there. Good morning. Good morning. Willie says Elizabeth Medicine Crow was part of a leadership group for a first Alaskan that took a week retreat to our cabins in Quinnahock. I'm here to tell you that she's a piece of work. Delighted when her group left. Okay. Okay. Miguel says should have been 10 million. Yeah. I mean, it would have been nicer to have a little bit, 50,000. Somebody said it should have been 500,000, but I mean, yeah, it could have been 5 million at that point. Could have been $5 million. Okay. Where are we at here? How much time we got? 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay. All right. I'm almost all caught up here on the comments. Let me go down here. Okay. There is something wrong with you, says Tim. Yeah, I know. Sometimes something just tickles me just right. Good morning. Caught the last 30 seconds before the break. Sounds like Team Evil took an L. Yes, Fat Ray. Team Evil took an L. Scott Kendall and company was forced to pay $50,000 in legal fees to the repeal group of ranked choice voting through the, per the courts. I'll drop you the link there in the chat room so you can take a look at it for yourself. Okay. All right. Getting my coffee. $50K fair price to pay for censure. I mean, maybe they feel like that's a win for them because they were able to defeat it and they felt like it worked. Maybe that was and maybe Mark is right. 50K fair price to pay for censure. Maybe it was a fair price. They feel like it's a fair price for winning because they were able to win. They were able to dilute the water and do all that kind of stuff. Maybe that was a fair price. I don't know. Okay. We're about to rejoin the radio. We're 30. How far out are we? Now we're about 30 seconds out right now. Okay. We're 30 seconds out right now. Ready to rejoin and, get things done. Please like and share the show. Like and follow the pot. Why did it not? I know. I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just going to not say anything about it because it just irritates me. Yeah. See, there you go. All right. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yes, I am. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the program. We appreciate you being part of it. Thank you for coming in and joining us. All right, we have got a more to cover. Sorry, somebody just made a point, and you know, I was kind of gleeful about this, but Mark on YouTube just made a point, and I don't know if this was the point he was trying to make, but this is what I took from it. He said $50,000 is a fair price to pay for censure. Now, and I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but what it triggered in me was maybe Scooter Kendall and company feel like this is a good deal because they didn't really have to pay their attorney fees. I mean, I doubt it, right? They're all part and parcel. They were just, you know, maybe they feel like that $50,000 was money well spent because they still won, right? They still were able to cause the, you know, the confusion and you know, all the uproar and everything else of, you know, getting the news media to report on them filing the lawsuit and everything else. Maybe they feel like that $50,000 was well spent. Maybe we're over here crowing about the fact that they had to pay $50,000 and they're like, gladly, we'll pay it because we still won. Maybe I shouldn't be quite so gleeful on it because maybe this is exactly what they wanted. This is exactly what they were planning the whole time. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Well, the Alaska Democratic Party now has its first declared candidate for the U.S. House seat. For the U.S. House seat, currently being held by Nick Begich. John Brendan Williams, a fisheries specialist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks Sea Grant Program, officially filed with the FEC to run as a Democrat on July the 2nd. He is a scientist. He brings to the race a resume centered on marine science, education, and commercial fishing. He works as a fisheries workforce specialist with the Alaska Sea Grant in Cordova. He's registered to vote in the University West Precinct of Fairbanks, and he holds a bachelor's and master's degree in wildlife and fishery science from Texas A&M. And he has he's got mostly, it looks like mostly his work life, it's all basically through the universities and hands-on experience as a fisherman in Prince William Sound and the Copper River fisheries. He's also worked as a community liaison for the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. And he is the first Democrat to formally challenge incumbent Nick Begich. He hasn't made any formal announcement, but filed with both the Federal Election Commission and the Alaska Division of Elections. So, I mean, he's not in jail, which is a plus, right? From Eric Hafner. Remember the guy who was it in Pennsylvania, who was running for office from a prison in Pennsylvania. So at least he's not in prison. It's good. It's good. But I mean, it's also kind of like, really, we're going to start this, 18 months out. This is the kind of election cycle we're talking about. So we'll have to see, we'll have to see where it goes, but yeah. So John Brendan Williams now running for the Democrats in the big race, congressional race next year. So keep that under your hat there as well. Okay, what else have we got? Oh, the official announcement has now come out, and it was in a reprint of an article in Stars and Stripes. Eielson Air Force Base is now the top choice for the military's first micronuclear reactor, nuclear. So in June, they officially announced it, that it was the preferred site for the reactor. They said that Eielson was selected because the micro reactors would be most beneficial at isolated bases with fewer power options if other electrical systems have failed. Now, historically, Eielson has had temporary power outages a couple times over the last 5 or 6 years. If the pilot project planned in Eielson, according to the ADN, proves the micro reactors have value, then they said that they could be ordering up new ones for other bases in the future. I mean, if it made enough sense, I would imagine that they probably would want to have a micro reactor at every major base in the U.S. as a backup, right? I mean, if it makes sense, it would make sense. The initiative, according to Air Force Secretary Troy Meinke, said the initiative has the potential to shape future strategies for powering national security infrastructures, especially in the Arctic, where energy reliability is critical amid evolving threats, meaning life is tough in the tundra, right? So, said the reactor could keep the base's lights on, heat running, and perform other missions, including possibly de-icing runways in case of other systems are knocked offline. So, the company to build, design, and operate the microreactor is called Oklo. It's out of Santa Clara, California, and they have been developing a test model of the reactor at the Idaho National Laboratory in Idaho Falls. Now, there's no real time frame as of yet because the Nuclear Regulatory Commission rejected Oklo's initial license application for its design of the reactor back in 2022, citing incomplete data for approval. Oklo has said they are planning to reapply, and of course, the president has said in a directive to the NRC back in May that he wants them to process applications in less than 18 months. So, assuming that they can submit a new design plan for licensing in the next few months, then we should be less than a year and a half away from the application being processed, and God knows how long until they get it on. But the project is part of the Pentagon's Advanced Nuclear Power for Installations program, where they want to have microreactors on at least 2 military installations by 2030. So let me check my watch again. 2025, 2030. So we got 5 years, right? And they want to get reactors that are designed to generate between 3 and 10 megawatts of power and operate for several years without having to refuel. So we'll see. We'll see. More and more people seem to be talking about nuclear power and as a potential third leg of the stool when they talk about, renewables and oil and petroleum and renewables, and nuclear being the third leg of that stool. But this is kind of exciting. I mean, I'm hoping it would really that this is something that can really happen. Trump has made fast-tracking nuclear energy projects a priority during his second term. And part of that announcement that he made back in May, where he directed the NRC to fast-track some of this stuff, said he had a goal of creating 400 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2050. With 10 large reactors under construction by 2030. So I hope so. I hope so. This is really one of the this is one of the solutions, I think, to our long-term energy problems, is getting nuclear back into the mainstream. because it got sidelined for, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and all these other problems. But I think is it Denmark? I know that France was getting a big chunk of their energy from nuclear before they started to reverse that course. But I think it was Denmark or Norway. They get a significant portion of their, like 60% of their power comes from nuclear. It can be done, and it can be done cleanly and conscientiously. I'm kind of excited to see, where we go from here on this. If you're a business owner here in the state of Alaska, guess what? Alaska's new sick leave and minimum wage law is now in effect. And that means if you've got a business with 15 or more employees, that they now will earn 1 hour of paid sick leave for every hour that they work, up to a maximum of 56 hours per year. If you have a business that has fewer than 15 employees, you didn't dodge the bullet. You have to give sick pay at exactly the same rate, but the maximum amount is 40 hours per year instead of 56 hours per year. So you've got basically a week of paid sick leave that has to go out. The minimum wage has also gone up. The state's minimum wage has now raised to $13 per hour. Next year, it will go to $14 an hour. And then by July the 1st of 2027, it will be $15 an hour and then be adjusted for inflation each year after that. Now, interestingly enough, the Alaska Department of Labor and Workforce Development has proposed new regulations, but they only proposed new regulations like 10 days ago, 15 days ago, like 5 days before the new law went into effect. They're like, oh, maybe we should get some regulations in here. Now, those won't take effect until August at the earliest, but they would add some new rules to the sick leave law as well. So they've got a whole bunch of new rules that they're going to put out there, and you can find them. There's an informal Q&A over at the Labor Department's website at labor.alaska.gov. And they got some notification things and some other stuff. This is becoming everything that we warned you it would be, right? Where if you put this in place, this really wasn't about minimum wage or it was about, again, creating more ability for lawfare, because one of the other things in that bill was that the law forbids bosses from forcing their employees to attend meetings about religious or political issues, but it's super vague. So if there's any kind of I don't have time to get into it right now, but because we talked about this ad nauseum when it was being voted on. But this is basically a minimum wage bill with a lot of bells and whistles attached to it that got a lot of the wish list of many of the labor unions out there excited about it. And unfortunately, it's mom and pops that are going to have to pay the price on this. That the sick leave thing, I have no idea how much that's going to cost many of these people, but essentially you have to, it's a full week's worth of leave without pay, or leave with pay. And it could be for a variety of reasons, but I don't know how, because, some of these businesses, we just had another local restaurant that just launched here locally in Homer. A well-known restaurant got bought by a new group of folks, new family, who were well-known in the community, who are established and have a good reputation. And they just launched the reopening of this restaurant. And I saw yesterday that they have to close down till fall now because they can't get enough employees. And they're having workforce issues. And so just to add insult to injury, now you've got this new law that goes into effect that means you have to, I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. But this is where we're sitting, my friends. This is where we're sitting right now. All right. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. You can join us in the chat room this morning if you want on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble. We'll return in just a moment, right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and micronuclear.com.
Okay. All right. Let's go up here and see what you guys are talking about. All right. Okay. Barbara Haney meet and greet this Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. Don't forget that. Melissa Burnett meet and greet this. Miguel is out here. He's the press agent for all these different folks. Melissa Burnett meet and greet this Saturday, 12 to 2. Don't forget. The interior will stand firm on no new taxes always. Anyone who is associated with the university is a big no. Ultra liberal, says Terry. I don't know. I mean, he seems like a nice guy, but yeah, I mean, it's, I don't think, we'll see. David Nelson says, I think more of our politicians should be in prison. Different. Yeah. You think they should run for prison? You think they should run for prison? Is that what you're looking for here? I can't wait for this Division of Elections to send out sample ballots for this race with the Democrat's name on the sample, having him running against Hitler or something. Yeah, I know. Right. Right. Good morning. Good morning. Tim said he lost audio, but thank goodness that was just him, apparently. So hopefully he comes back. Willie says Bethel needs one of these micronuclear things. They could use a little more than a 10 megawatt at peak, $6.60 a gallon for fuel in Bethel. That's about what it was in Soldovia. It was kind of surprising that it was quite that high. Bill says they need to build a micronuclear one in Anchor Point and watch all the folks in Homer just go full meltdown. The bunny huggers in Homer go full meltdown. Yes, Frank's excited about. He got a pay raise, $13 an hour now. Mark says he loves the positive adult view of nuclear energy. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about this on the program for the last couple of years, Mark. We had, I can't remember the guy's name. We talked to him about the salt thorium nuclear reactor. He was one of the, anyway, it's the technology. It's where we need to go. It's where we need to go, putting aside the green energy and all the other kind of stuff. It is the most reliable, most affordable, most steady. It is the future of everything. And I want to see where it's going on. Seems like Raising Cane's, which has yet to open in Fairbanks. Just the building. Oh, we were talking about the restaurant here. Yeah. It's, nobody, that's part of the problem. David said Safeway in Homer has the same problem. Nobody wants to work in Homer. It's not that nobody wants to work in Homer. It's that nobody can afford to, because the cost of living is down here because of the housing situation. You can't afford to live in, and live on a minimum wage. That's part of the problem. But that's a whole different kettle of fish down here, for sure. Wow. Brian, I said made a kind of offhand comment that the guy that this John Brendan Williams, seemed like a nice guy. I was like, seemed like a nice guy. And Brian just went full on, well, Ted Bundy seemed like a nice guy too, just saying. Okay. Wow. Brian just went like full scorched earth and compared him. Did you just compare him to Ted Bundy? I mean, yeah. All right. Bradley is saying, if you live in the Matsu, public comment for the fuel tax, the proposed fuel tax is on the 15th. Spread the word. Spread the word. Maybe hide the guy also. Science guy. Yeah. No, I mean, it'll be interesting. Okay. Raising Cane's can't get enough employees who are clean, apparently, Melissa is saying. A lot of issues with drug testing. Yeah, I mean, it's a known problem. Okay. So I got 30 seconds left here. Should I get into this Murkowski, the hand that bites you kind of thing back on this, or should I got a couple other things I can cover, but shouldn't I talk about this Murkowski thing? What do you think? You tell me in the chat room. We'll get back to it here in just a second. You tell me. Here we go. All right, I'm coming. Let me go. Here we go. Let's continue on here this morning. We are ready. We're ready to go. No cow. Everybody's screaming no. They don't want me to talk about the Murkowski thing. Just the M word sours might, but you guys might like this. This might make you happy. Maybe I'll just tease it a little bit. It's because it kind of made me again gleefully cackle. So I guess I'm just good. It's an opinion piece by Donald Craig Mitchell. So the article's headline is kind of what caught my attention. It says, opinion. I know there are Americans who are not going to be advantaged, but so what? And I was like, what? I mean, what? I know there's going to be, I know there are Americans who are not going to be advantaged, but so what? So he starts off talking about how over the last 40 years, the Alaska Republican Party is morphed from the party of Jay Hammond and Ted Stevens into the party of Donald Trump and Mike Dunleavy. And Alaskans who are not members of a political party and who collectively are more than half the electorate, and many Democrats have taken solace in the fact that in 2002, one of the most brazen acts of nepotism in America political history happened. That was Frank Murkowski appointing his daughter to the seat on the U.S. Senate. But then he goes on to praise the fact that after she had been appointed, that she would have been, first of all, that she would have been the last person Alaska Republicans would have elected. But he goes on to tell her about how a decent, courteous, kind, and thoughtful woman that she was, right? he goes on to go back through some of the history of her winning elections, and she only won because she had no discernible, consistent political ideology, and it enabled her to be all things to all Alaskans, particularly independent and Democratic voters, who in 3 of those 4 elections saved her from her own party. So this is right. I mean, this is like a truth telling here. This is like a total truth telling of everything that's going on. So he continues to go through and tell the story of the different election cycles, 2004, 2010, 2016, and everything else. But he then starts to take her to task on things when he starts talking about the 2016 election. She said Scott Kendall, who in 2016 had been Lisa's senior campaign advisor, orchestrated the passage of an initiative that brought ranked choice voting to Alaska. In her hagiographic as told to autobiography, this is her new book, right? She said she told Kendall that she thought ranked choice voting was a bad idea, but then, quote, didn't have any further involvement, unquote, and, quote, my team insulated me from the issue to avoid the appearance that the initiative was intended mainly for my benefit, unquote. So this guy goes on to say that spin stretches credulity past the breaking point. Goes on to say how this was all what she, this is all, and this is, by the way, this is all backlash because of her vote on the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's what this whole article is about. This whole long diatribe about where she came from and all this kind of stuff, and how she won. She only won in 2022 because of ranked choice voting. But then in the pre-dawn hours of July 2nd, in one deplorable act of political pusillanimity, I mean, this guy's got some words in him, Lisa shattered her relationship with the independent and Democratic voters who had 3 times saved her. After the usual performative hand-wringing and dithering that Alaskans have come to expect, she provided the last vote that Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune needed to pass H.R. 1, Donald Trump's big, ugly bill. And hold on. Wow. I cracked myself up so much I got into a coughing jag. So anyway, he then goes back and he even quotes Scott Kendall, who he says is, I mean, this is the worm turning, folks. This is the crowd turning on them directly, because he even calls Scott Kendall a loyal sycophant, and goes on and on about this whole thing. He says on this site, Scott Kendall, ever loyal sycophant, recently argued that Lisa made the best of a bad hand by selling her vote in exchange for benefits she extorted for Alaska. This is, it's so good. You should go back. You should go read this. Again, I still don't quite understand what the headline means. I know there are Americans who are not going to be advantaged, but so what? Anyway, it's an interesting read, but I have to chortle at the fact that she was the darling of these people until this one vote, when she absolutely was not. And now it's like she's reviled, and like the one time she doesn't do the one thing that they want her to do. And I mean, it's interesting bedfellows. Let's put it that way. Interesting bedfellows. So I'm sorry if folks out there in the chat room are still mad about, talking about Murkowski, but I just love to watch the fact that she was the darling, the bright-eyed beauty and darling of this crowd, and then all of a sudden they're like, she's dead to us. I mean, it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing to watch. It's kind of amazing to watch because this is exactly what you knew was going to happen. That the minute that she stopped voting the way that they were, or on a single bill that they absolutely wanted her to vote no on, the one time she votes in the way that many true Republicans or conservatives wanted, and now she's, it sounds a lot like FACL tactics. For FACL, for those of you who don't know, is the frothing at the mouth variety of the Republican folks out there who basically eat their own all the time. But anyway, it was just, I read this article and because first of all, like I said, the article, the opinion, the headline caught my, I was like, what does that mean? What are they trying to say? And then it was interesting to read. You should go out there, and I'll post it up in the chat room, and you can go read it if you want to read it. But it's by Donald Craig Mitchell, and it's in the AD. It's in the ADN, and you can go read it for yourself and get the full rundown. All right. We didn't get to the fact that the Kenai Peninsula Borough is now considering a new seasonal sales tax that would change it from a 3% flat tax in the a 3% flat tax year round to a 4% in the summer and 2% in the winter, which from my perspective, I would just say at this point, you guys are just making it way too convoluted at this point. But that's just me. We didn't get to that, so we'll have to see if we can pick that up maybe part of tomorrow as well. And then Governor Dunleavy, there's more hand-wringing yesterday or this morning, I don't know if you saw this, about his vetoes, which happened like a week ago, and now they're still picking parts and pieces out of his vetoes that they're still wringing their hands about. In this case, $1.86 million in additional funding for child care grant programs and place-based and home-based child care centers. This is all about the child care stuff. They're still wringing their hands about it. Anyway, we will we'll cover some of that stuff tomorrow. Up next, Ben Carpenter. Okay. Let's see. I just saw this. Sorry, I just saw this headline. I missed it this morning. I don't know how I missed this. Alaska's Governor Dunleavy's office says the state has no plans to build Bear Alcatraz to jail ICE detainees. This is like the alligator Alcatraz that they were talking about down in the Everglades, right? That's what happened down in Ochapee, Florida. Right? And now apparently Fox News had said that maybe Alaska would build a Bear Alcatraz for ICE detainees. And they said no. It's the Alaska version of the Bear Alcatraz, or the Alcatrazer. Anyway, the answer is no plans to build Bear Alcatraz for ICE detainees. That would be, part of the problem is that we're a lot further away from a lot of the action out there, and that would just make it, probably unsustainable. But you would have to put it way out in the bush somewhere to keep all the protesters from, trying to protest and I guess attack the facilities. You saw that yesterday, right? That there was a whole attack on one of the ICE facilities where anyway. And it's a thing. It's the thing. let's go back over here and see. Oh, I guess I should Shimia. Yeah, you could put them on. Well, you could put them on ADAC, right? I mean, you could put them out there at the end of the road. The end of the road. I'm just sending it. Just sending it to. Sending a text to bed. Okay. Let's see. How about Rye special session coming? What? Speaking of headlines, Socialists on the Move, a radical Marxist group wants to change Alaska's Anchorage city charter. New Office of Inspector General. I didn't see that. I'll have to take a look at that. Conservatives wanted a massive pork-filled spending bill. I guess when you miss one meeting, you miss a lot, because I didn't get that memo. No. I mean, I'm I'm with you, Fat Ray. I mean, I think a lot of, I guess what I should have said is regular middle of the road Republicans. Because yeah, $3.8 trillion is not my ideal of a slim bill. But, there you go. Kim says Alaska was used as an experiment to see how well ranked choice worked to secure votes on the left. It worked so well they used it in the New York mayor's race that secured candidate Mandami for the Democrats. Yeah. We have islands. Yeah. Let's see. Bernadette for governor will be in Soldotna, Kenai today. Oh, she's going to be at Mel's on K Beach from 11 to 1. Well, there you go. I'll have to come by and say hi. Okay. Wait a second. I got to... Nope. Let me send I gotta send Ben a new link here, because apparently he's not in the right room. I'm looking for an email address. Here we go. Let's try this again. Sorry, guys. We're running up against it here. There we go. Then there we go. Link. Boom. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get ready for Ben to jump on board. To your email again. Okay. Well, I think I'm all caught up here. I find it offensive that people from the lower 48 states, especially the East Coast states, who have benefited from almost 250 years of statehood, are all up in arms when Alaska gets a little something from Uncle Sam. After all, we're just trying to catch up with the rest of the states. I know, right? Right? We're like, we haven't gotten much. Hey, Ben's in the chat room. Here, let's check his audio real quick. Hello, my friend. Can you hear me?
Good morning. I can hear you, Michael. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right, good.
Awesome.
I know we must have had the old link there for you there. So, all right. Let's we'll jump back in here in just a second. I'm 20 seconds out, so we're gonna re-jump in here and do our thing. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio, back with more right now. Here we go.
buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at micronuclear.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. How are you doing this morning? You ready to rock and roll? Let's get to it. Hour two. Our guest this morning is former Representative Ben Carpenter, who is now the host of the Must Read podcast. He's going to come on this morning, and we're going to talk about special session, final vetoes, and so much more. And he joins us right now. Good morning, Ben. How are you doing this morning, my friend?
Hi, good morning, Michael. I'm doing very well. Good to be with you again.
Well, thank you for coming on board. If you've got a little more volume on your side, you can give it to me here just a little bit. That would be great.
Yeah, it means I got to get closer to the mic, I guess.
Oh, that's fine. We can handle it.
Yep.
All right, Ben. So we've been covering a lot of different things here over the last few days, but nothing to me was more surprising over the last couple weeks than the fact that the governor arbitrarily decided to call a special session. I mean, we'd all heard about how this was just not gonna, this was not gonna happen. There was, lots of things going on, but the bottom line is that it did happen. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought this is kind of a brilliant political maneuver, because it kind of, even if he loses, he wins in some ways, I think. What are your thoughts on the call of the special session before we get into the vetoes and everything else? What's your thoughts on the call on the special session?
Well, I've talked to a few people since this happened, since the announcement was made. And I've read in the news what the news agencies are reporting that the leaders of the legislature have said. And I think people, the general public, don't care for this kind of politics that's being played right now. And this is the negative side of politics. It is very much a political move. The reality is that the governor doesn't want to see his vetoes overridden, and having a special session equals a greater chance that his vetoes will not be overridden because of people not being able to attend, legislators not being able to attend a special session. So in the political realm, in the political world, that's a fair play. He has a right to declare a special session, and legislators have a right to not attend, or I would say they don't have a right to not attend, but if they have prior obligations, then they are not going to be there because they can't break those obligations per se. So I would argue that there is a constitutional responsibility for legislators to be there if they can be. And that's something that every single legislator is going to have to weigh on their own. But obviously, if you're out of state for business or you had a family gathering, I mean, the news agencies are reporting, it was a Speaker of the House said there was no prior indication that a special session was under consideration. And after talking
right.
of the legislators, I think that's clear that nobody really knew that this was going to happen. So they didn't plan for it.
Right. So they may have already had alternate plans and et cetera, et cetera. And then of course the governor, in kind of an unprecedented move, literally said the quiet part out loud and then encouraged all the minority not to show up for the first 5 days or something. I mean, it was, that was an interesting discussion, that he would put it out there in that way. And I think that's what kind of making some people kind of scratch their head over this.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, yeah, some things just don't need to be said.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Because most people would be like, okay, well, we just won't show up the first 5 days. And he's like, hey, just don't show up the first 5. You're like, wait a minute. You're not supposed to say the quiet part out loud. But he like broadcasted from the rooftops. It's almost like almost like braggadocio at some point. We just rubbing the faces of the majority in it or not? It doesn't seem like we're winning friends and influencing people in that way.
Yeah. Well, when I have in the past, I've said that the legislature is kind of a mix between Survivor and junior high, and this would be an indication, right? This is not how professionals or adults, I would say, are supposed to operate. I mean, you've got the Senate president that's quoted in the this is the Anchorage Daily News, and he says that the announcement by the governor was disappointing. The legislature addressed both of these issues during the regular session, and rather than respecting the process, the governor is doubling down on proposals that failed to gain legislative support. And your Alaska news source quotes Kathy Giessel, Senate Majority Leader Kathy Giessel, saying the absurdity of the subjects of the special session are dumbfounding. Right. So right off the bat, whatever prep work was done to get people to want to work together appears to not have worked with those two individuals. I don't know where the House leadership is, because the news articles don't necessarily quote on that specific, but right. It's clear that the Senate is not super excited about working with the governor.
But it's been pretty clear that the Senate itself has been, I guess, antithetical to anything that Dunleavy has wanted to put forward. I mean, again, going back to your whole, junior high school Survivor thing, it just seems like there's a lot of hurt feelings back and forth one way or the other, or antipathy that's going back and forth, where if the governor says the sky is blue, they say, no, it's gray. If the water's blue, no, it's green. I mean, it just seems like there's some of that going on in there as well. Am I wrong from the outside looking in?
No, I don't think you are. I think this is why it's very important to work on relationships. It is very, very important. You can be from opposite sides of the political aisle, but you still have to be working towards something, and relationships matter. If there's only one thing you can agree upon, then that's the thing that you work on, and then you agree to disagree on the rest of it. I don't see that one thing that everybody agrees upon, except for let's spend more money. That's it. I don't recognize. I don't see it. That's you would think that education would bring everybody to the table, and it does up until a point, but it ends up being just about the funding, and that's
no.
I don't know how else to explain it. It is just immaturity on our part and lack of prioritization.
Well, but we saw this during the initial debates around education, right? Because anytime somebody would bring up, well, we really need some policy, and they'd be like, no, shut up and give us our money. We don't want to talk about policy. That's for later. It was almost like that tantrum of, I want my money. I want my $2, right? And it was like, wait a second, we can't in a vacuum, but that they just la to money, give me my $2. I mean, that was what it was. And so we've kind of seen this all the way through. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I mean, on a real foundational level, I think this is just what the nature of bureaucracy is. This is how bureaucracies get their funding, is through these political games. It's not like they actually have to have a product that sells. They can actually have a product that doesn't sell, and they just have to nuance it in a way that says, hey, we need to continue doing what we're doing. Right. That's a description of the education system in many regards. Is we have a mechanism at the state level of funding based on butts and seats.
Yeah.
And you have a declining enrollment in many schools, in many school districts, that says that the byproduct of that is a decline in state funding based on that formula, butts and seats. So the conversation isn't in why are you losing people? Why the population in the state of Alaska is kind of has been fairly stagnant, maybe with a population shift a little bit towards more elderly and less families, less working age. But the population of our school districts have declined at the same time that other schooling alternatives have come up, like the public schooling homeschool programs, right? So you're seeing a shifting of the population of students that is impacting the budget, but we're not having a conversation about that. Why is it that parents are taking their kids out of this system that is then coming back to the state and saying we need more money? And the school districts are not helping with that conversation at the state level, and the players at the state level don't want to have that conversation. They just want to have it about money. So
right.
I mean it defies logic.
Well, there's no self-examination. There's no time for self-analysis or, an after action review of how did we do? What do we do? Why are they doing the things that why are they doing the things that they're doing? Why are the students leaving? Or why are the students not succeeding in their scholastic achievements? I mean, there's a variety of different things they could analyze here, but they want to ignore every one of them and just cry for more, right? More. We just need more. That would be the solution. If we just had more, then we could overwhelm it with quantity instead of quality, I guess, is what they're trying to do. But no analysis on any of the other issues or what's causing the major problem here.
Yeah, if you look at who is running the show within school districts, it is people who have spent a lifetime, a career in education, public education. Okay. So their frame of reference, the perspective by which they're looking at the problem is bureaucratic. It is this is how I was raised. It's not unlike military leaders. It is not unlike people who are grown up through the ranks within the military, looking at a problem of an organizational problem with a lens of, well, this is how we've always done it. That's in essence what we have within our school districts. And if you've got a problem with parents pulling kids out of school and not trusting what you're selling, they're not trusting what and it's not really a selling because it is, but it's not. I mean, it's a public school system. So you don't feel like you have to go out there and sell it. It's just has always existed.
The product you're delivering, maybe the product you're delivering. That's what they're.
Yeah, I mean, I say selling in the frame of reference of a business, but parents are looking at it and saying, I want a different alternative. But the growth, like my career path, taking me from being a teacher to being an administrator, doesn't prepare me for self-examination and critique of my system. Right. I'm embedded. I have that desire to see my system, my life's work succeed. And it is very difficult for people to have a conversation that says, you know what, I need to bare my wounds. I need to open my feelings up and open my chest up and look at what it is that is actually causing the problems here. And do I want to know if I'm part of the problem? That is not something that bureaucracies do real well. You look at a school board meeting, and it is all about patting ourselves on the back.
Right. It's not about, hey, look, we know what the problem is. The problem we know is that it's declining enrollment. And because we have a per student funding formula and we know that the projected decline is to continue, we know that we're going to continue to receive less money. And instead of planning on that, what we do is we build a budget that has even more and we ask the state for more. That's not how arithmetic works, right?
But that's how the bureaucracy works.
Yeah, but that's what they want to do. They want to protect. Well, we know we have fewer students, but we should get the same amount of money. What? That doesn't work out. It doesn't work out that way.
The thing is, if you're basing your schooling system on the buildings, the structures that you have, then part of that argument is true. I mean, if you're going to say, hey, I have a dozen schools in my district, the brick and mortar, the physical buildings, and the costs for those schools keeps going up, the cost of fuel and whatever, so that it's more expensive as it goes to maintain those schools, then yes, you've got a funding problem if the costs of those schools are going up and your student body is going down, which is where your cash flow is, right? That's where you're making your money. So do we need to look at rewriting the formula concept? I mean, this is no different, Michael. This is no different than the PFD discussion. The PFD discussion is a formula, right? We're supposed to be paying a dividend based on a formula, but we don't. Legislature just makes it up every year. So what amount of money is going to be spent towards that PFD program, right? So funding of education, we've got a formula that was created, and it's supposed to help the bureaucracy know how much funding is going to be coming in every given year and help the legislature make a decision. But ultimately, the legislature can make a decision as to what funding is going to go out every year. It's statutorily and constitutionally, that's the way that the power of the legislature has. Right. So the question ought to be, is the structure of the funding mechanism working for us right now? Because it doesn't. It isn't.
It's not working for us.
It's not working.
Yeah.
Why don't school districts submit they submit a funding request every year?
Right.
Instead of waiting for the legislature, let's just see the funding requests come to the legislature and we address them.
Right, one by one, and you could pick each one apart. But wait, they don't want to do that. They want to give local control. I mean, this whole thing is a conundrum. All right, we're up against the break here. We got to go. Ben Carpenter is our guest, former state rep and now the host of the Must Read podcast, which you can find over at mustreadalaska.com. We're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. We'll talk a little bit on the other side about some of the vetoes and what his thoughts are on that, and then the upcoming session as well. We'll return right after this. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're back. Donna Ardwin in the chat room. Hello, Donna. She says hi. She says hi to everybody, including you, Ben. Good
morning, Donna.
Some good stuff there. Can't do what you say without transparency from the districts. With the exception of the Matsu, the answer is no. And I'm assuming what you're talking about is the funding requests, or any of that, right? But again, that all takes self-reflection. You have to look at yourself and say, okay, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Why are our students 51st out of 53 districts? Why are parents fleeing the district? Why are students fleeing the district? Is the enrollment down overall? Is it because of the outmigration from the state, or is it something that we're doing? These are all questions that could be asked. It could be asked. It could be asked, but these are all questions that could be asked, but nobody wants to. All it is shut up and give us our money. We don't want to talk about policy or anything else. Right?
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's been my experience.
Yeah.
There's claims that Dunleavy, and this is again going back to the news, so take it for what it's worth.
For what it's worth. Yeah.
The claims are that Dunleavy is the one that's using students. I don't see it that way. I think this is the left using students to keep control of their schooling system. If you peel this onion back and look at the founding of our public school system, it was founded by Christians who felt it was necessary to have some sort of a public education system that would raise the level of education for our fledgling country. Okay. And we've come 180 degrees where Christians are no longer welcome in the classroom. Like, Christianity is no
Right.
longer welcome in the classroom. And maybe that's part of the problem, why people are like, you know what? I don't want my kid to be in a place where Christianity is not welcome.
Right.
In some cases, it's hostile towards Christian
Yeah.
principles.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of times it's not even just neutral, it's outwardly hostile to those kind of to those kind of philosophies. So yeah, that's part of the problem. Well, that and the whole Prussian school model that we've talked about here on the program before, where they're coming from. John Taylor Gatto's got a couple books on that stuff as well to you can look at and read. But yeah, it's one of the reasons why we never put our kids in the public school system from the beginning, is because that's what I was always concerned about. I was always concerned about those kind of things. And it's proven to be true. It's proven out to be true in many ways. And here we are fighting these battles over our kids and having these battles, and the kids are in the middle of the battle. Instead of, I told people, I said, you should pull your kids out. And if you want to fight the battle of the school districts, fight it, but don't have your kids in the middle of the fight. You should homeschool your kids while you're fighting it out with the school districts for them to get it right. And it's just, it's a hard thing to do. We're stuck, and it's very emotional because a lot of people are not paying close enough attention until the crisis hits, and then all they can do is run around like chickens with their hair on fire because the news media tells them now the kids are all going to be ignorant and dying in the streets, kind of thing.
Well, I think there's a foundational question here that needs to be answered that we're not even talking about, and that is the state, is the governor and the legislature even the right place to be having these conversations? And I get where we're at today, right? We're having them because those conversations are not being had at the local level. But especially speaking of it from a Republican point of view, our party platform says, hey, we want local control of school districts. So why in the world are we having conversations about the governor needs to fix the problem or the legislature needs to fix the problem? The problem should be fixed at the local level, at the school district level. So if there are policies that need to be put in place, then you need to have them put in place at the local level. If that's what we truly believe is local control is what we want, then you ought to be holding your local school board feet to the fire, or running for the school board.
Yeah.
If you are a conservative and you want to see conservative principles in the school board, then you have to have conservative people in the school board.
All right.
Otherwise,
here we go. We're jumping back in.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right. We're continuing on now. Ben Carpenter is our guest, host of the Must Read podcast, former state rep, and all-around budget warrior, right? Was one of the few people out there pushing for a balanced, like a fiscal plan, a long-term fiscal plan, which that was one of the things that, that Brad Keithley and I were talking about earlier, Ben, was that, at the end of the session, when it was all said and done, the governor was like, we really need to talk about a fiscal plan. We really need to do that. And when we come back, I'll have some suggestions for that. And so when Brad said, when I saw that he called a special session, I didn't see what the topics were going to be. I thought he had come back with a fiscal plan, like maybe the components of the fiscal policy working group had said, we're going to talk about these, but he didn't. It was, again, education and agriculture, the two things that he was, that as you alluded to earlier, that, didn't seem to really be resonating with anybody. But we need to have a fiscal plan. The governor said that. And he alluded to the fact during all of his cuts that one of the reasons that he cut was because of the fiscal situation. So as you look at what he cut and where he went and this idea of a fiscal plan, especially you being one of the few people to really push, the components of the fiscal policy working group plan, what are your thoughts as you look at all this come down?
Well, I don't think a fiscal plan is going to fly with this legislature. So it'll have to survive and be discussed for a next gubernatorial election gubernatorial term, I guess you should say. After that election, then potentially there's a possibility for a fiscal plan. But this legislature is not going to act upon. They'll give you more taxes, they'll raise revenue, but they're not going to do anything about reducing the cost of bureaucracy, which is part of the fiscal plan, right? You cannot just have a conversation that says government is doing what government is supposed to do, and therefore we just need to spend more money on it, because that is not the case. You listen to people within the government; they will tell you there's lots of waste that goes on. There's lots of things that we could do better, and that's one component of a fiscal plan, is making sure that the bureaucracy improves itself. The other part is just having a structure that incentivizes economic growth. We don't have that. You were talking on the previous hour about what the Kenai Peninsula Borough, and this is the first time I heard about this, but the discussion about modifying the sales tax structure,
making it more seasonal. Yeah,
more seasonal. And why would they do that? Because they recognize that there's out of state money flowing into the borough in the summer months. So why would you not take advantage of extra dollars flowing in and reduce the burden on your own residents in the off season? Why would you not do that? I mean, it makes logical sense, because a 4% sales tax for people coming in out of state's probably not going to break the bank if they're able to make a trip to Alaska, right? But then that means that you're incentivizing the decisions that go on within the borough. They're going to care about continuing that tax revenue at 4% during the summertime. So we're not going to do things to jeopardize that. At the state level, you don't have that mechanism. You don't have that thinking going on within the legislature. If your economy grows, for example, if you put a data center in Alaska, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold here. If you put a data center in Alaska and you have additional people coming in, you have additional revenue being generated from that, does it mean additional dollars going to your state budget? Only if that company that's doing this is a corporation that's paying a corporate income tax. If they don't qualify for the corporate income tax, then their revenue is not being revenue based on that economic increase is not going to the state budget. So it has we can look at it and say, okay, well, there's no taxation there. That's great for the business. But then you look at the legislative point of view, and we're not going to legislate things that interact with that positively, because it doesn't matter to the one thing that we all want to do when we come to Juneau, which is spend money.
Right.
So the fiscal plan has got it's a human nature piece of this, right? You're putting in place something that forces the legislature to care about the things that you care about. We care about oil development. Well, oil is helping fund the bills. So we're going to care about that in the legislature. If you want your economic engine to help pay the bills and you want the legislature to care about it, then you've got to have an attachment. There's got to be a structure there.
Right. So there has to be some kind of take from the private economy if they are going to care about it at all, because otherwise they're completely disconnected from it and it doesn't matter because they're not receiving any revenue. The second you attach revenue to it in some way, shape, or form, all of a sudden they're going to get real interested in what's going on there in the private economy. They'll be like, oh, wait a second, that's where our bread is buttered, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, from a conservative perspective, it is untenable to say, well, we don't want taxes. We don't want more taxes. We don't want any taxes. No taxes. Okay, well, that's not a position that I can stand on. If you're a conservative and you're saying the government just needs to not tax anybody, okay, well then I want law enforcement. I want roads. I want good government. Because
but that's been the Alaska position since we removed the income tax in the state back in the day, when Hammond said, don't remove it, just turn it to zero for now, don't eliminate it. But that's been the no tax. That's been the mantra the whole time. And in some ways it doomed us to what we have today, because it disconnected the private economy from the government. And at that point, they don't care. They're just sucking all their money off this other stuff. And they're like, oh, whatever is going on over there, we don't care. And that's part of the problem, right?
I wholly agree. I think the bigger problem that we have in the state is this concept of the government down in Juneau gets to do whatever it wants to do. And the reason that it can is because it's in Juneau, because it doesn't have to listen to the people. Its money is coming from oil. And now it's more than that. It's coming from the permanent fund. And you are setting up a system where the decision makers that go to Juneau only have to care about the oil money coming in and the permanent fund revenue, permanent fund earnings coming in. That's what they care about. That's what's driving the largely the financial decisions of the state. It is not where you work. It is not the private economy. It isn't.
It's not. No. And again, it's unpleasant and it's unpopular to talk about this, but I've been talking about this on the program for the last 8 or 9 years. We have to talk about the potential future of where things are going. And that means we're going to have to talk about taxes, because if we don't, they're going to impose them on us anyway. Right? I mean, this is effectively, this could be the last year of the PFD that we're about to receive, because next year the deficit is 3 times bigger than what it is this year, and there's not that much left of the PFD.
Well, it depends on what the price of oil is.
True. I mean, there's some factors there, but yeah. I mean, all things being equal, if oil gets down to where the president wants it to in the 50s, and we have all the other things going on, that could be it. And then what happens after the PFD is completely gone?
Well, I'm in agreement with you. I don't know the time frame of when the PFD goes away, but it is inevitable at this point, because you have pressures that continue to grow government in place. Those are your systemic things that cause government to grow, even just at the rate of inflation. And you don't have another source outside of oil or permanent fund earnings that is going to allow that growth to occur. Okay. So even if you're looking at the good growth or the growth that's acceptable, you don't have a way outside of oil or permanent fund earnings to pay for that additional growth. It's going to come from one of those two sources. That's it. And so you've put a system in place that's going to peg it at that thing. And you do not send, and I'm speaking to all Alaskans, you do not send people to the state legislature in enough quantity to say, you know what, the permanent fund dividend program is most important to us, or is one of the top important things, and therefore we need to force the government to spend less. You aren't sending those people.
No, those people are few and far between. I mean, there's nobody else there. I mean, there's a lot of lip service being paid, but it's just not happening. And that's why, again, the cuts only crowd has, as much as, the listenership of this show is probably very much on the cuts only bandwagon. It's not a winning solution at this point, because you don't have enough people in Juneau to make that a reality.
No, and this is why part of the fiscal plan has got to be some structure similar to the Sunset Commission that Senator Hughes brought forward, that I brought forward, which is yes, it's growing government by a little bit, but it's putting in place a mechanism that does a deep dive. It does the after action review. That's its purpose. It's tied to the public through appointments, that does a deep dive into each one of these departments and actually does produce recommendations on how to do things more efficient and get a less costly government. We don't have that function right now within our government, other than a legislative auditor, which is not getting us the results that we want.
Right, exactly. All right, Ben Carpenter is our guest. We got to take a quick break. We will return in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget, you can always join us over here on Facebook at facebook.com/Michael Duke Show. If you want to come back and come on board, we'd love to hear from you there. We will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll return with Ben Carpenter right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we are in the break along with Ben Carpenter here. Chris says we send Republicans. They're just Murkowski Bjorkman Republicans, right? I mean, that's the thing. That's why I've said for a long time that you can't you can't blame this on Republicans or just Democrats or just This is a politician problem, right? This is a philosophy, and Ben, you and I have talked about this a lot, that this is more of a philosophical problem of big government people versus smaller government people. It doesn't really matter what animal they have on the lapel of their jacket. It's about philosophies at that point.
Well, we definitely, and I've been doing a little bit of work in this to try to shape that conversation just a little bit behind the scenes. But you're right. The teams of people that get together to work and operate in the election sphere, right, influencing elections, those teams we recognize as Democrat and Republican. The problem is that we don't have control over who our membership is. Neither of those groups do. So you can call yourself whatever you want based on state law, and largely because both of those organizations want the state government to pay for our primaries, right? So it is we have a Republican problem on the face of it, because there are more Republicans than Democrats in the legislature, but the makeup of the Republicans in the legislature is not all the same. So the question is, what does it mean to be a Republican? Is a very valid question.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, as you just pointed out, part of the problem here is that the second that the Republican Party started taking state money to run their own primaries, that's when they really did themselves an injury. Because if you are a private organization and you're holding private polling for your own organization, then you can decide who gets to be what and where. But the second that you start using public funds, now you open it up to a free speech and free association thing and everything else, and it becomes a whole different kettle of fish. And that's how we got to this point. When government gets involved in every aspect of our lives, it creates these kind of problems.
Yeah. So if the party doesn't matter, if party politics doesn't matter, then I guess you can just do away with the parties and we would have better elections. Do we think that that's the case? I think it's misunderstanding human nature and what leadership is.
Right.
Leadership and organization, and getting organized and moving together in a common direction and supporting each other. That is how we get things done as human beings. It is wrong to point to the party as the problem. It is the people that's the problem.
Right.
It's the people who are making up the party that's the problem. So fix that, and then you fix the other outcomes from it.
Yeah, and I don't know how. I mean, it's become so inculcated into the whole system now at this point. I mean, how would you even suggest it to, the Alaska Republican Party that, hey, you need to stop doing, state needs to stop paying for you should have your own private elections. You should have your own. I mean, how it's almost unthinkable, right, at this point.
That's an easy answer. It's because the Republican Party at its foundation is a grassroots organization. So the grassroots have to make that decision. Each one of the districts within the Republican Party needs to make that resolution and pass it up to the state central committee, into the decision makers of the party, and that becomes the thing that the grassroots wants to do. That's the organization of this particular group of people.
Yeah. And then it would be a lot easier for them. And then censure and other things like that would have a deeper effect, because you could decide who's in your own party at that point through those categories. And if it is a public, or if it's a private, if all the voting is private and not paid for by the state up until the main general election, then you could have a say as to who could have your brand, your logo, your trademark on their lapel.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not sure how much time you've got in the break here, but you're at the very bare minimum when a voter goes into the voter's box. If they don't know anything else about the candidates, they're going to look at the letter behind their name, and that communicates something. But in the state of Alaska, it doesn't necessarily communicate what you think it communicates. Because what does it mean to be an R or a D? Well, it's clearer if you're a D. It's murky if you're an R.
Not to be too punny, but it's murky if you're an R.
It's murky.
It's murky if you're an R. That's exactly right. All right, Ben Carpenter's our guest. We're about 30 seconds out from rejoining the radio here. Please make sure you like and share the show today. Like and follow the show page. Donna says the Sunset Commission would be a game changer for Alaska. Thank you, Ben, for continuing to talk about it. Yeah, I don't think it got any traction this year at all. It would have been nice to have that come out and have more discussions on that, but I don't think that got any traction here at all. You're right. We need to.
Why would big government people want a Sunset Commission that would help make government more accountable?
Yeah, no. I mean, it makes no sense. All right, here we go. Jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, we're continuing now. One final segment with Ben Carpenter, who is a former state rep and now the host of the Must Read Alaska podcast. And Ben, we've talked about the disconnect between the public and the private economies, what needs to happen during the break here. We were just talking about, if we really want to fix this issue of, having true, I guess, Republicans who stick to the party platform or something like that. You said something that you and I both said here in the last week or so is that it's a very uncomfortable truth. But the bottom line is, if this is what we need to do, then the Republican Party is going to need to stop going to the state and having the state foot the bill for the primaries. This is something that the parties themselves should be responsible for, so that they can decide who can participate in these things, right? I mean, that's the thing. As soon as we allowed government to get involved, then it started using public monies, which triggers a whole thing about freedom of speech and all this other kind of stuff. Whereas if you're a private club, you can decide, and truly a private club, you can decide who can represent you and have more control over that. The issue here is the fact that the state is paying for the primaries. That's how anybody can show up.
Yeah, I don't know how to communicate this real well because we've got such an aversion to the words political party and politicians. And there's like this, we've bought into this lie that we don't talk about religion and politics in our family life and our work life and all that. It's just, stay away from it. That's ugly. Right. But that is where you have to have a conversation and operate if you want better policies and better governance for your self-government. You have to. And the only way you're going to get things done in life is through a team, through a effort of mutual support, both and it's time, it's talent, it's treasure, all of that on a team moving forward. We put a label on it and say it's a political party. Where if I'm coming out of the military 2018 and I want to help get things done in the state, where do I go where other people are trying to get things done?
Right.
There's nothing outside of a political party to go do, right? There isn't that organization. This is what you have. So at a very basic level, we've got to understand that the team of people who are trying to get something done is what we put a label on that says it's a political party. And it's only as good as the people who make it up. So if you care about self-government, and I think this is where the crux of the problem is. There are just too many people who don't see self-government as their responsibility. They want the results, but they're not willing to put in the time and the effort
right
to participate. The time talent, and treasure that's required to maintain it. And I
Yeah.
say this very gently because it's not everyone. I want you to understand there's a season for everything. I look at, and I hate to rip this Band-Aid off just a little bit, but it's gonna sour some people. This is gonna piss them
I'm
off.
ready.
I know it is.
Buckle up. Here it comes. I'm ready.
This whole concept of the golden years and retirement in our nation, our culture, is part of the problem. And I know I'm speaking to voters and I'm speaking to people who may be supporting me that this maybe stings just a little bit. But if your idea of what is right means that you're going to go live outside the state of Alaska for six months out of the year and not participate, then you could be the most brilliant person in the world, but we don't benefit from your participation. Right. If you think that once you reach the golden years that you can just disconnect from society and go live your life and have fun, then this society is going to lose the benefit of your wisdom. The next generation is going to lose the benefit of your wisdom if that's your goal, is to just disconnect and move on. And here I'm saying, look, I'm recognizing the junior high behavior that's happening in our legislative process. I recognize it. It is lacking maturity. And those that should be the most mature, in some cases, are disconnected and have left and have said, you know what, I'm just, and whatever excuse will do, and I'm gonna pull out.
Right.
So very fundamental level, very, very human fundamental level, we need more influence from people who are mature and can control their behavior and think logically and present themselves in their arguments in a fashion that people can get behind, and then be organized to move forward. If you don't have that, then it's a free-for-all. And I think that's what we're experiencing. And that's where, if you got rid of the political parties altogether, that's what you would have as a free-for-all.
A free-for-all.
It would be very ugly.
Well, let me ask you this, because again, we talked about this yesterday. Elon Musk had decided to come out to be, and he, he's very upset about the bill, and said he's going to farm, and he formed the American Party, right? So if we can't get the current party straightened out, if they're going to continue to take state money to do primaries and do all this kind of stuff and perpetuate this problem, is it time, or is it even feasible for a third party? Is that even a viable option, or should we just focus on trying to, for those of people who are members of the Republican, but should they just try to vote? What is your thought on that kind of third party, or is it, time to get a new, you can't unpickle a pickle, so try to get a new cucumber kind of thing?
Well, history would say that there can be a shift in politics, that a third party rises into power. If you want to just boil it down and to use some tough language here, it's all about power. It's all about who wins elections. Okay, remember, the Republican Party was the third party candidate party. Third party. Okay, when it was formed, you had the Whig Party and you had the Democrat Party. And the Republican Party came on the scene, and it stole membership from both of those parties. And it is now, the modern day Republican Party is now benefited from that move that happened just prior to the Civil War. So the question now in my mind says, are you a big government Republican, or are you a limited government Republican? And are there enough people who have left the Republican Party who are limited government folks that would buy into an American Party with Elon Musk to become a viable third party at the national level? Because your big government Republicans are more in line with your Democrats. So if you've got a shifting of the population and you are just dividing people up between, we need to keep government spending the way it is, big government, keep spending, that's part of the Republican Party. That's all of the Democrat Party.
Right.
Elon Musk steps in and says, hey, I've got another alternative, but it's not for the big government Republicans. It's not for the people who want to see government spending continue. It's for people who want to see the government get smaller. are there enough of those people who are going to say and recognize, oh, I want to participate in a party now. It's not the Republican Party, but it's this other party. It presents a problem because you've been poo-pooing party politics for so long that now could you see yourself getting involved in another party?
Right. It's it's a challenge, and even Anthony brings up an interesting point. He says, if it were, he said, how would it be ugly? I mean, really, if it were a free for all, we would rarely agree on something and get it working. But is that bad? Is that a bad thing necessarily? How many trillions of dollars are we in debt due to all the agreement? And that was something you and I have talked about in the past. I mean, the founding fathers, they made this system complicated and convoluted because they knew that if it was too easy to get agreement, I mean, they would basically, government would grow beyond our control in a short period of time. They made it complex and convoluted for a reason. And sometimes we should maybe embrace that a little bit better instead of all the kumbaya kind of thing.
Well, from somebody who's engaged in politics, engaged in getting elected, there is I can't do it myself. And I could do it myself if I'm talking local politics. I am a little less capable of doing it at the state level, but if you're talking about Congress or president or governor, there's absolutely no way that you can do an election statewide by yourself. You have to have help to do it. So the organization of getting elected, of getting the right people elected, the people who you support or support what it is that you want to see the direction of the government go, is something that cannot be done alone. So if you separate out that organized sport, if you will, and you send a whole bunch of football players out onto the football field, and you say, okay, we're going to set the ball down, we're going to blow the whistle, y'all form whatever is necessary, but those who want the ball to go to one end of the field, you're going to do that, and the others go the other direction. If you don't have organized team, then who's supporting who and who's doing what? It's chaos.
It's I wish we could fix this all in one day, but we can't. Ben, this has been a super interesting discussion, and I want to invite you back on to get deeper into it, because I think we've had some hard truths here today that you and I have not had a chance to discuss publicly in a while. So maybe we could shoot back for next week or something, and we can keep coming back to this, solutions. But I appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was great fun, and appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow, Sarah Vance, The Michael Duke Show. All right, Ben. No, I think, you said a lot of things that, I think is probably shocking to some people, talking about the potential for, that we have to have that connectivity. We have to have some kind of probably taxation connectivity between the private and the public sector. The discussion that we were just having about again, people being responsible and parties, and whether or not the Republican Party should have the state pay. Those are some radical things that I think people, they don't want to think. We were talking earlier about the school people not being self-reflective. I think some of the people on our side of the philosophical fence don't want to be that self-reflective either. But again, you can't just say, we'll keep taking the Uncle Sugar's lucre and then have to abide by his rules. And when somebody says, well, maybe we shouldn't take his money, and they're like, well, whoa, that's crazy talk, right? These are the kind of things that I think we need to be talking about more.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the path forward is best if we work from within the Republican Party and redefine what it means to be a Republican. And that means that some will be politely excused or decide to leave on their own, right? This because it's not the place that I want to be, and that's okay. There's probably more people in the state of Alaska who are conservative minded that would support a Republican Party who currently are not, if the Republican Party actually stood for what they believe. And I have to believe that because Trump got elected from Alaska.
Right.
So there are conservatives out there that are like, I hate government, and I'm not participating with the Republican Party because I don't believe the Republican Party hates government. Right. So it's a situation. And I put forward a resolution to our local district that said, hey, what do you all think about requiring the state central committee, the state party, to provide some sort of legislative priorities for our Republicans that get elected at the state level? That currently does not exist. So my local district said, hey, that's a great idea. That resolution went forward. It went to the state central committee, and all of the different leaders that come from the different districts at the state level, they looked at the resolution and said, hey, that's a good idea. So now the state Republican Party central committee, the makeup of the state party, has got to decide what its priorities are that it wants to communicate for legislative action this next session. So now you're going to have some sort of, I mean, maybe it's only one thing that Republicans in the state can agree upon, that they're going to say, hey, Republicans that we've elected, this is what we want you to do this next legislative session.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what comes of that. And I appreciate your thoughtfulness on that. And I know that you were also, and this is probably a topic for a whole nother show. I know you were also still working on the whole grand jury issue and been watching that as well. Any quick movement on that? You want to give us a tease as to what's going on there or what you're seeing?
Well, part of the delay has been the budget problem at the federal level. I've been assured that Congressman Begich will help with this issue in getting some FaceTime with the district attorney, U.S. district attorney, to have a conversation. I believe pretty strongly that we're not going to see a solution to this problem from within the state of Alaska. I think that we're going to have a disinterested third party operating within the legal environment in the legal sphere to come in and shake things up, because I think that we are way too self-protective from our lawyers in this state.
So, I mean, you're saying essentially a federal investigation. There's going to have to be some federal.
I think that is what's going to be required. That is what has had to happen in previous or in other states and throughout history at certain times when there is corruption and politics happening within the state that is wrong. It's just wrong. They should be policing themselves, but they're not. Right.
Well, because again, it's a pretty closed circuit group, right? When you got the judges and the lawyers and the it's kind of an all very closed ecosphere there.
Yeah, and if you want a career in the legal field, then you're not going to step on people's toes.
Yeah, exactly. And it raises again the major question that we always ask: who's watching the watchers, right? I mean, that's the big question there. So,
that's right.
Well, we should have that discussion here in the near future as well, Ben. What's your next podcast? What do you got coming out? What are you?
I've been working on something that's to help people understand AI and what potential that brings to the state of Alaska, and I think that's what's going to happen next. I just had a conversation with folks who are repealing ranked choice voting, and you can catch that on YouTube or on anywhere you get your podcasts. That conversation was published here last week, or maybe it was beginning this week. It all runs together, but anyway.
It's all just time. It's all just time, my friend. All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, it's good to talk with you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you later, Michael. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of the show for today. We are ready to go. Tomorrow, Sarah Vance will be joining us, maybe something else in hour one. We appreciate you guys being part of it. Thank you for coming on board. Please like and share the show. We'll get more folks involved. That's all it takes is a little bit of dedication on your part to get more folks involved in the program. We will be back with more tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll see you later.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Bye.